Welcome to the Pindown, your Detroit Pistons podcast. I'm your host, Wes Davenport from Motor City Hoops and Detroit Bad Boys.
And I'm Blake Silverman, writer for Detroit Bad Boys, covering everything from the Pistons to the NBA draft and the Motor City Cruise.
So if you guys are watching live here, you can see me chuckling a little bit. This is, believe it or not, so peek behind the curtain. We always have an outline for our show, right, for our episodes that we do. Outline has a little script of what both of us supposed to read off. And Blake, I started the countdown today and I realized, oh crap, we didn't make one. And so I'm sitting there, I was trying to go to Google Drive to pull up an old one while we were counting down from 30, about to go live. And I didn't find one, so I was just fingers crossed. Let's see if I do this right. It's 2 sentences. It can't be that bad, but I was nervous.
Oh man, nothing like the quick shot clock for you. Yeah, I totally should have made one too. But yeah, I'm guilty of looking at an old one, so I remember my intro and everything. So hey, you're all good. It happens. We're all busy, so we're here and ready to talk some Pistons. Unfortunately, we're recording after a loss to the LA Clippers, and the Pistons are on this West Coast swing, have Golden State tomorrow and round it out in Portland as well. So hope they can grab at least one of those games. I know Golden State will be tough. They're playing so well since they trade for Jimmy Butler. But you never know. I feel like the Pistons always play them well, and Portland's been playing well too, but I feel like that should be a winnable game. Especially after Wes, you are back. I
am so sorry.
Filibuster.
Yeah, thank you for the filibuster. Our Wi-Fi went down. Like I got done with that intro and our Wi-Fi just stopped. I actually thought you were frozen. Whatever. Wild.
I wondered who it was, because yeah, you froze up on us. I didn't know if it was my connection. Hey man, it happens when we rely on internet for so many things. Like, it's bound to happen.
And perils of a live show, right? So apologies for everyone that was tuning in live. I don't even think this is one of these that we're going to be able to clean up for the actual podcast. So this is going to to be interesting for me editing.
You can if you want. I just rambled a bit.
Well, where are you? What are we talking about?
All the stuff we were going to cover. Like, I did bring up that it seems like we seem to jinx this team and always record after losses, even though there aren't many losses coming as of late. And then just a bit of this West Coast swing, like split it to start off. Bros on fun picture. The Clippers game was a tough one. I mean, going into it, when they're missing so many guys, you almost mark it as a win. And then James Harden is back to the James Harden of 5 years ago. And Duran gets in early foul trouble, similar to Cade, picked up a couple fouls in the first quarter, and Ivica Zubac was getting whatever he wanted, those little push floaters and everything. So I think right before the game ended, Blaha and Kelser mentioned that Zubac, Harden, and Bogdanovic combined for like 95 of the Clippers 123 points, which is just insane. So yeah, it was a rough night. Obviously, there was the foul discrepancy too, and especially at the free throw line. So it was a tough one for the Pistons. But starting off the West Coast swing with that win in Utah, even though it is Utah, when you're missing Tobias Harris, missing Isaiah Stewart, on top of obviously Jaden Ivey's been out since the start of the year, but I thought that was an impressive win on the road to start this off. And then they got another tough test against Golden State, and really like two, because Portland's was playing well. They've fallen off a bit, but hopefully the Pistons can get back to their winning ways and snag one or both of these tough games on the road.
Right. And I mean, we knew that this road trip was going to be tough. They weren't going to go 100%, right? They weren't going to just not lose a single game. So it got off to a great start there with that Utah game. If we can stick on that just for a second, I really thought that was a fantastic encapsulation of just where this team is now versus where they've been in the past. Very similar to the Brooklyn game, right? I mean, the Jazz tried a few times to make a strong push and make it more of a game than it really was. the Pistons kept pushing them back down. That was one of those more or less handle business games, right? And we've seen the Pistons, one, not even really get the opportunity to have a handle business game over the past couple of years, but in years past when they have been competitive, like during that Blake Griffin era, those were games that they did on occasion lose, and we've not really seen that. It seems like JB really has these guys in a row and ready to compete every single night, which happens again with the Clippers too. Look, I know that they had a lot of injuries, but that's a talented team. This is a good team. You just go through their starting lineup. Obviously, Zubats is a great big. Harden is capable still of having a resurgent performance like he did. And then Bogdan Bogdanovic, I know that he's been struggling from the 3-point line so far this year, but he's still a really good shooter. You flank both of those guys with great defenders and ball movers in Chris Dunn and Nick Batum, even with the injuries. This is a solid roster. They're a solid team. And I think it's still a positive to look at the game that they had, right? They kept it close. It's tied at halftime. You only lose by 8 on a night where you had 3 Clippers account for 95 points. I think that's 100% a positive to me.
Yeah, and just like I think the one of the biggest things that sticks out to me with this team is just the vibes and how they seem like that they really enjoy playing on the same team and spending time together outside of when they have to be together. And I thought after that Utah game, like this is a little bit off the court, but when the Pistons released that video on their socials of Jalen Duren giving the WWE belt to like JB Bickerstaff after he won Coach of the Year, and how Duren talked about Bickerstaff and just being their leader, and then at the end when Bickerstaff had a few words and just said it's a collective thing, like yeah, it was a little bit of coach speak, what you hear all the time, but their like chant that they led at the end was like together all the time together. And I just it's just crazy to me how poor the vibes were last year compared to like what they are now. When you look at this roster and like, yes, you made a ton of impactful acquisitions, but like the main pieces that you need to hit to make things go are still here. Like there aren't any drastic changes, any huge trades like you see across the league. So that just like stood out to me seeing that on social. And yeah, it's a tough game as well. And you could tell in the post games after the Pistons lost to the Clippers, like they were pissed. Like it's almost an expectation that they're gonna win these games now. JB had nothing crazy, but some comments about the fouls, and like Cade as well. And like, how are you gonna guard Harden if he just gets a call every time you make contact with him? So like they're not like, oh, it's okay, we lost that one, we didn't expect to win that game. Like there's an expectation that they're gonna win every night, which is just night and day from what it's been like following this team for so many years before this one.
And I know this is a bit of a draft topic, which we don't have to really talk about right now. And I think that is a wonderful thing. I'm still so excited that we haven't had to dive into this draft class at all at this point in the season. It's fun to just talk about basketball, but I only bring it up because when you're talking about the vibes, and I think it's a really important aspect of the way this season has gone, because it's the vibes, it's the leadership, and then it also is those additional pieces that are in support of those core group of guys that you really needed to succeed. And I bring that up in terms of a draft context only to say that, look, context really matters. If there's one takeaway, I think, in terms of draft conversation and strategy with what these Pistons have done this year, it is that the context in which you are drafting a player absolutely matters. These are the same guys by and large. Yes, they improve and they're working over the offseason, but the same traits of players, archetypes of players that they were day one. Most of them still are. They're just slightly better versions, or in Cade's case, significantly better versions of what they were when they were rookies. But the situations that they were all drafted into, specifically last year's rookie class with Asar Thompson, and then the sophomores at that time in Duren and Jaden Ivey, the reason they didn't thrive was because the context sucked. The roster was awful. It had no spacing. They were purely relying on, let's cross our fingers, cross our toes, close our eyes, and just hope that like maybe Asar Thompson isn't a terrible shooter, and maybe everybody else is going to take a huge leap in shooting that we've never seen, and everything's going to be great because if they win games, then they won games because that was the core group of guys that did it. We can still say this year that the core group of guys is who are winning the games for the Pistons right now. And that's wonderful. It's a great thing. But it's because not only do you have a better leadership and locker room setting, you also have better players around them that actually fit and actually work. So you've put them now in a position to thrive, whereas they had not had this before. And so context matters. I'll just leave the draft topic there, but context really matters. That's been my big takeaway so far this year with the turnaround that this team has made.
100%. And like we've discussed this before, but when you look at Ron Holland, like this draft class didn't get a ton of, like, it wasn't a great draft class coming into it. Not the star power that you normally see, but Ron Holland is going to have a role on a playoff team, which is so huge for his development, even though it's not a big role. I mean, many rookies' roles, especially in a playoff setting, isn't going to be big. So I think that's huge, even if he isn't like one of your thought of as like one of your franchise players right now, not one of your primary scorers. Like, he's going to have something to build off of that. Some of these other rookies, like, I don't mean to pick on someone, but his G League Ignite teammate Modest Buzelis in Chicago, like, the context isn't great there. The team was totally different. They traded Zach LaVine during the season. Don't really know where it's going. So yeah, I'm totally with you there. And behind the scenes, like, there had to be so much going on with all the new faces coming into both the Pistons coaching staff and front office this offseason. And just credit to these younger players for like believing in it and probably not like throwing last year out the window, because I'm sure the salt of it just like has to stay in your mouth, because like how could it not? But they've just done a great job, and like a lot of people say, winning fixes everything, and this team this year has been like the true testament of that, because they're playing well together and the wins are coming as a byproduct of that, and then they keep building upon it, which is amazing.
Two questions for you on this Clippers game before we go ahead and get into the pre-submitted and our live chat questions. And shout out Brad B, who sounds like he's going to the OKC game, which should be really cool. That's away, right?
I have to look, but if so, I'm very jealous, because I've never been to Oklahoma City.
It's an arena I really want to get to. I don't know why. It just always seems like a really good vibe in there with all the fans.
Oh, no, it's at home.
Bummer.
It's at home. But
okay, well, still a good
we'll need
game.
to do an outing to OKC.
Yeah, I agree. We'll make that happen. But a question I wanted to ask you with the Clippers game. First one is that, okay, this is more of a statement than it is a question. Am I wrong? Do you think I'm wrong to say that I think this whole fouls trend conversation online on Twitter about the Pistons maybe getting a bad whistle or sometimes getting a not great call, I really think we're talking about vibes. To me, it's vibes based. You look at the overall box score here, 20 fouls for Detroit, 16 for the Clippers. I get that some of those fouls could go and be more shooting fouls for the Clippers. They took more free throws. That's obviously a lot of James Harden. He's really good at that sort of thing. Point is, it's not like there really was all that lopsided of a whistle. Even in terms of the free throws, the Pistons shot 19, the Clippers 26. It's just theirs were condensed to James Harden. I think this is all vibes. I think it's a nothing burger and people just like complaining about the refs. Am I wrong?
I think where the issue is, first of all, I don't think you're wrong, but I think where the the issue stands is like the James Hardens and the SGAs and the Jalen Brunsons who like, yeah, the Clippers shot 26 free throws and 20 of those were from James Harden. So it's insane. And like you see online people just talking about unethical hoopers, which is your James Harden, your SGAs, and your Jalen Brunson. So and that's just like not Cade's game. Like he's not foul baiting or anything like that. What is interesting is I thought that against the Clippers was one of the most impressive games that Cade has had finishing at the rim, but he only got 6 free throw attempts. So like
6 is really
maybe
good,
they're
though.
yeah, yeah. I guess I just mean compared to the
That's
20 of
fair.
James
Okay, yeah, that's
Harden.
fair. That's fair.
So when you like take that into account, I guess I could see why Bickerstaff and Cade had something to say and were a little salty about it. And there were some like fouls that could have went either way, shouldn't have been called down the stretch. But yeah, overall I'm with you. Like the discrepancy wasn't outlandish by any means. It's just like when the same player is getting fouled and going to the line possession after possession, then I could see like the argument there. But it's also like, what are you gonna do to stop that? Because I don't know.
Yeah, and so MMC313 says I like to fight the tide a little bit. You know what? That is generally true. I can be a bit of a contrarian, but I do think in this case, I think you're right. Sorry, excuse me there for the cough. I do think you're correct that it's the concentration of the free throws to one player that really calls attention to it and really makes it stand out. I will say though, if you're going to have a player like James Harden or Giannis or sometimes Jalen Brunson get up to 15, 20 free throw attempts in a game, this is how you'd want it officiated. On the Clippers roster, only 2 other players shot free throws. I know that not a ton of other players also took a large quantity of shot attempts, so there's a little bit of that going on. But my point is, if you're going to have one guy that's up that high, in order to give yourself a shot, right, in order for that whistle to be more fair, you would want ours, in this case the Pistons, ours to be spread out, which it was, and theirs to be really condensed because they've got one guy foul baiting. And yeah, I'm going to call it foul baiting because I think Harden does it. I recognize that it's a skill. I respect the skill. I don't love it. Point is, look, when you've got 19 free throw attempts, the other has 26. When you've got 20 fouls and the other has 16, I just struggle to say that was a lopsided whistle. Sure, it's certainly skewed to the Clippers a little bit, but that's within a margin of error. And I think you got to respect the refs enough to kind of put them off to the side and treat them as an uncontrollable when it's this close. That's just my perspective on it, though.
Yeah, I mean, it was Scott Foster who
It always
some
is.
players do.
That's the joke.
Yeah,
guys.
but I didn't think it was egregious by any means. I just think the fact of like the Pistons competing in this game, and then there were a few calls down the stretch that could have went the other way and didn't, and left a little bit of a bad taste in their mouths, which I understand. But yeah, I don't think like I guess I'll say I was happy that the post game comments didn't go farther than they did because I didn't think it was anything worth being fined over. And I guess it doesn't matter for me. Like it's not my pocketbook, but like no need to do it after a game like that because you're gonna see those same refs again. So yeah, I thought it was fine overall. Frustrating for sure when you're playing a player like James Harden and he gets to the line 20 times and your star player it has 6 free throw attempts. So I get it, but yeah, it's definitely not going to be anything close like to that every single game.
I just want to say it. 6 is actually really good for Cade. But regardless, I agree with your point. Mimsy313 brought up this in the comment section, said kind of like letting MJ score, but shutting down Scottie Pippen back in the day with those Bulls teams. You know what this reminded me of, just as a quick tangent for fun? Do you remember what the Jason Kidd defense was? It was like my favorite defensive strategy of all time. How do you stop Jason Kidd?
I don't know. You're gonna have to
Specifically, I think it was
give me this
when he
one.
was with the Brooklyn Nets. You stop Jason Kidd by letting him score. Because if he's scoring, he's not
Uh,
getting anyone else involved. And that's how Jason Kidd would always
yeah.
beat you. And it was just, as a kid, I thought that was the funniest thing, the coolest little bit of defensive strategy. We want that guy to score. Just don't let him help anyone else. His assists are more damaging. It was wild.
That is funny. And it reminds me, and I hope I might be spoiling our guy YouTube user's comment, so I'm just gonna bring it up right now. He asks if we're encouraged by the fact that the Pistons are competitive in every style of game. The Clippers loss was encouraging to him just because Cade went blow for blow with Harden. And where my head was at is like, it's impressive that the Pistons are still competing in a game when an opposing player is having the night that James Harden had, where everything's going right. He can't miss. He puts up 50 points. And that wasn't the first game either. I feel like there was a game earlier this season where someone scored 50 points and the Pistons beat them. I can't remember who, and I'm not going to put you on the spot, Wes, because that wouldn't be very nice of me. But it's just impressive that no matter who is on the opposition, like in the past, it seemed like I remember KD dropping 50 on the Pistons or like Anthony Davis. And you always just chalk those up to losses. But against the Clippers, the game was close for most of it. And they definitely never felt out of it, even after you have a player going for 50 points and also their centers having a good game and their floor spacing wing as well. So I'm definitely encouraged by that just because you don't know where how this playoff race is going to shake out, who the Pistons are going to play. I know we'll talk about that later, but it seems like no matter who it is, they'll at least compete.
Agreed. Yeah, I loved this comment as well from YouTube user. It's like, well, like you said, it's the styles, right? So they'll go and they'll play a barn burner against Utah where they're just scoring a bunch of points and they're beating them that way. They'll go shot for shot with the Atlanta Hawks, scoring up close to 150 or whatever that final box score was. And then they'll have a game like this against the Clippers where, yes, they lost, but it's competitive. And Ty Lue has this team playing physical and really really good execution basketball. The Clippers do not make a lot of mistakes. If I could pull it up really quickly on the box score, they only had 9 turnovers as a team. The Clippers did. Like that team is running like a smooth and well-oiled engine. And Ty Lue is a great coach. So they have him playing in a very specific style. It's a little slower. There's less run out opportunities for Detroit because they are a good and sound defensive and defensive rebounding team. And they're still in the game. I mean, it was tied at halftime, and it really, they only lost it really in the fourth quarter. They played them straight almost the entire way through. And like they mentioned, Cade Cunningham going shot for shot with James Harden there. He put up 37 points and 15 for 25 from the floor. Great night from him, 10 assists too. I think it's extremely encouraging that the Pistons are the type of team that can get out and run. They can put a bunch of points on the board. They can also slow it down. They could get into a physical defensive battle with you. And in either case, I feel like they've got just about an equal shot to win. I'd probably take the barn burner more so than the slow down defensive game at this point, just because that likely means, Malik Beasley's firing from 3. Cade's in a little bit of a slump right now from 3, but he's probably picked it up too. Same with Tim Hardaway Jr., et cetera, on down the line. I think I'm slightly more confident in the Pistons being able to win a barn burner than I am a game like this Clippers one. But the fact that it's close either way, you can't spin that as a negative. It's incredibly impressive how flexible JB Bickerstaff has gotten this team to be, especially after, like we've been saying all show, what happened last year.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm probably taking a liberty here, but if you compare the points generated between Cade and Harden, they're pretty much neck and neck. Cade had 10 assists, Harden had 5. So it's just I always feel like, let's say 70 to 75% of the NBA, whoever the Pistons play, they're going to have the best player on the floor at most times in Cade Cunningham. was this James Harden's night? Yes. But you're not going to play a James Harden every night, and you're not going to play a player who is going as unconscious as him. But it seems like no matter what the game plan is against the Pistons, even if it's to take out Cade, like he's still able to get the rest of the team involved and just keep generating offense that hasn't really slowed down no matter who the opponent is. So that just makes me more encouraged about this team as well, just like how good Cade is. And even if another player is like having their night, like Cade's pretty much right there with them too.
Last thing before we get to the playoff conversation, which I really want to get to again, because we got a great question here from Mimsy313. But that was a rough Jalen Duren night against Zubats. We've been rightfully giving him his flowers after the past 2 games that he had, and he's been on a hot stretch. But specifically that Nets game, that Jazz game, he really played well defensively, I thought. No real good way to spin this one here against the Clippers. So look, what do you make out of this? Right, in the month of February, his stocks, his disruption stats, they actually went down pretty significantly. It was about a half stock less per game in the month of February than in the month of January, where he hit his peak. He of course came out firing in the month of March, but that's just 2 games. And now we have another night where it's not even just the fact that he didn't register a block and he only had 1 steal, but you also looked at only 3 rebounds, got into foul trouble, fouled out actually. What do you make out of this? I know he's young, so it's going to be a bit of a roller coaster, but what's your takeaway here out of this about month stretch of basketball for the young center?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's been some of the best basketball we've seen, and I'm hoping that like the game against the Clippers was definitely rough. Like Zubats was really doing whatever he wanted, getting those push shots. Duran gets into foul trouble early. The 2 games before that, he had 10 total blocks. Like he's not gonna put up those numbers every single night. Like I think ideally you shoot for him to be somewhere around that like 2 blocks a game if he really makes that step that we want him to take on defense. And he's looked the part at times recently in other games like he hasn't. And I feel like when he hasn't, mostly it is because of like playing yourself out of the game and getting into foul trouble. I think I mean, it's harder for just that position in general to stay out of foul trouble. It's easy to pick up too early. Like it, and this was a problem for like Isaiah Stewart has been so good at protecting the rim and just as a defender as a whole this year. But staying in the game was like a problem for him when he was starting as well. So Duran now as the starting 5, like I feel like he just needs to make sure he isn't playing himself out of it early. And like for the Pistons, you have Paul Reed as your third big, which is huge. So in times where someone is in foul trouble, you can go to him, but obviously you want Duran on the court for everything he brings offensively and hope he continues to make those leaps as a defender. Like I definitely don't think it's perfect by any means, but after really the best couple games of his career as a shot blocker, as a rim protector, like I'm willing to throw out that Clippers performance and see what's to come from here.
I'm really curious to see if what Mimsy313 brings up is kind of what happened here. He brings up the competition level. I mean, the Clippers are much better a team than are the Nets or the Jazz. So, I mean, I'm sure that had something to do with it. I wonder how much of it had to do with it. A quick shout out to our guy Derek Brown. He says he hasn't joined live in a while, so welcome back. Really appreciate you. And he brings up the super chat and little peek behind the curtain, but we are currently working with our guy Sean Corp, with DBB, and a little bit with SB Nation to try and see if we can get some of that stuff going here on the YouTube page. We'll see.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, we really appreciate the call out there. So we'll see, right? We'll see if we can make it work. But that is something we, fingers crossed, have in the chat, or have in the future, not in the chat. It'll be in the chat, hopefully, in the future. Our next question is from Mimsy313. It's about the playoffs and about the Pistons' ideal first-round opponent. But before we got to that, I wanted to ask you kind of the inverse question. And this was already planned. That's why I'm shouting out the question before it actually shows up. But if you were the Bucks, the Knicks, Pacers, whoever, do you want to play the Pistons in the playoffs right now? Like, is there any team from your perspective that's looking at Detroit and going, I feel good about this. I like that matchup.
You know, I was thinking about that this week because I think the general, like, our first feeling is how we've seen this team playing and how they're competing night in and night out. A young up and coming team that's hungry and also has some like veterans that are trying to like prove themselves as well, and really just everyone's like committed to here. It's just everything seems to be well ahead of schedule, going right. So I think that's a scary team on the surface. And like I understand how we, as the people who are like following this team night in and night out, think that. I just wonder if like other fan bases see the Pistons on and like the sixth spot and they're like, oh, I hope we get to the third so we can play the Pistons. But I will say I don't like using the word like casuals, but I think like if people maybe who would think that are those who wouldn't be paying as close attention this year, because clearly the stretch that this team is on right now and just how they're playing off each other, supporting each other, the vibes that are around this team, like it the Pistons have to be a scary opponent in the postseason just because they don't have anything to lose. And that's a scary spot for a team like the Knicks, who have mortgaged a lot of their future to bring in Michael Bridges, to bring in Karl Anthony Towns. Like they need to win a championship with this roster. Is this year the year? I don't know. And then Milwaukee, like you traded for Dame last year. Giannis is like, you have your team. I think maybe the Pacers are a little bit of a different story because they overachieved last year and they're still trying to reach a new level of their own. So I guess maybe my answer is the one team I would think might not be as afraid of the Pistons is the Pacers, but like also they kind of should be because of how much these teams hate each other, and like the Pistons are clearly gonna get up for that series like they would anyone else. But if you are one of those teams that is on the back end of what you're doing and you're a win now team, like I would not want to see the Pistons because they're playing with house money essentially, and that's a scary place to be for someone who's on their last couple bucks.
So YouTube user brings up that Detroit should want Indy and Indy should want Detroit because this could be a really good rivalry. Says he still hates Reggie Miller. I love that. Mipsy313 saying J.I. versus Matherin could be a rivalry. Love that too. My personal hope is they end up playing the Pacers. But to this question and to your point, I think you're spot on why the Pistons are scary. You've got Cade Cunningham, who on any given night could be the best player on the court. You've got a really young team playing with house money that has shown that they could win in a variety of ways, like we were talking about earlier. And not only that, but they're hot. I mean, they're 8 out of their last 10 right now. Who's to say where that's going to be by the time we finish the year? But if they even continue on a pace that's close to 500 with the strength of schedule they have down the stretch, you're looking at a relatively hot, quote unquote, basketball team. So I think for me, like if I were going to put myself in the shoes of another fan base, I think if I were the Knicks, I'd be petrified because, and this is awesome to say, I'm not sure that Cade Cunningham isn't better than any individual player on the Knicks right now. And that's not even on like a game-to-game basis. Maybe he could be better. I think just genuinely, straight up, Cade Cunningham is the best player on any roster in that series. That's what I think. So if I'm the Knicks, just on that fact alone, the fact that I would be getting into a series with a young team with nothing to lose, and I don't have the best player on the floor, even though I'm a veteran team that has invested a ton of money into the roster, oh, I'd be petrified. I'd be absolutely petrified. If I were the Pacers, same reason. Same reason. I'm afraid because the Pacers as well, they've stuck a lot of resources into that roster. And are you trying to tell me that you really think Tyrese Halliburton, Pascal Siakam, or Miles Turner are significantly better on any given night than Cade? I mean, I know they got more depth, obviously, but again, this is the playoffs. It slows down. The best player on the floor really has a lot of pull on what the outcome tends to be. You saw Luka Doncic drag his team to the finals almost on his own. Yeah, Kyrie Irving played well, but that was the Luka Doncic tour. We've seen the same thing with guys like LeBron. I'm not saying that Cade's in that realm at all. If he were, then we'd be talking about the Pistons as a title contender, and they are not. We're just talking about them being competitive and maybe winning a series. That's the level I think Cade is at. So all this is to say, the only team, if I were a fan of, that I wouldn't care who I were playing, I wouldn't care if I'm playing the Pistons. In fact, I might welcome it just because the Pistons don't have the type of depth that this other team, that the Pacers or the Knicks do. So if I had to choose amongst the three, I'd probably want the Pistons. It's the Bucks because Giannis is still Giannis, and Damian Lillard can play off him really well. That's still a deep team, a well-coached team. I mean, they've also kind of had the Pistons number here. I think if I were a Bucks fan, I'd be cool. I'd be cool with the Pistons. Everyone else, though, God, I'm petrified. I'd be so scared.
Yeah, I was wondering a bit like Bucks and Pacers. You win the regular season series and maybe like play each other 4 times. That's a lot of sample size for JB to concoct a different game plan. But it gets a little bit different over a 7 game series. So yeah, maybe that's not the case. I mean, I'm looking at the Celtics aren't going to drop past the Knicks or anything like that to fall down to third. And yeah, obviously that's a much better team than the Pistons, but the Celtics have had their problems at times too this season, but they're starting to play a lot better. And like Derek White and Peyton Pritchard both scored 40 points last night. So even if other players are out, they have that depth there as well. But yeah, in general, like I don't know if there is an ideal team that you would play in the postseason. Like this isn't going to happen, but if the Miami Heat were about to jump back into the top 6, like yeah, you're probably trying to play them, but just with how these Pistons are playing, like I would not want to see them just because they have nothing to lose. And what you mentioned just about the playoffs being like stars being able to carry these teams along, like Trey Young did the same thing when he took those Hawks to the Eastern Conference Finals a few
Halliburton
years
last
ago.
year.
And yeah, Halliburton, like who was expecting that? No one. So do I think that Cade Cunningham is going to do that with the Pistons this postseason? No, but I definitely think it's a lot sooner to like making that surprise run than I ever could have thought heading into the season.
Let's flip the question now. So Mimsy313 says, who's the best case scenario first round playoff opponent for the Pistons? So we just talked about who, if you were another fan base, would you actually want to play the Pistons? In which situation would that be? Now let's go the other way. So we're the Pistons. Who do you want to play? And I guess that's 2 questions. Who do you want to play? And then who do you think they might beat?
Um, well, I guess I'm with like the majority and who I want them to play is the Pacers just for the entertainment factor. And also like I think the Pistons could win that series. Like I think they're gonna like you don't have to doubt that they're gonna get up for it and everything like that. And I agree that they have the best player on the floor in Cade Cunningham, which means a lot in the postseason. Um, but honestly, I'm gonna stick with what I said last week, which is the Knicks. I think that's where things fall right now. If the regular season were to end today, I just think the Knicks have had their defensive struggles themselves this season, and I think that really plays into the Pistons well. Whether that's Cade finding his shot, Malik Beasley making threes, wherever the offense is going to be created. I think the Pistons have proven that they do have a number of options based on your given night. And like before the trade deadline, that wasn't really the case. But bring in Dennis Schroeder, who deserves a tip of the cap for the game he had against the Clippers, by the way, like really being able to manage the second unit and be an extra ball handler when they need him. I think the offense will flow against this New York team. Obviously, it's not like an ideal matchup because you still have to find a way to deal with Carl Anthony Towns. And we know that stretch bigs haven't played into this Pistons team finding success, but it's either Cat with the Knicks, Brooke Lopez with the Bucks, or Miles Turner with the Pacers. So it's a little bit of pick your poison, and just knowing how Tom Thibodeau shortens his rotation and really grinds out his guys. Like, yes, it's in the first round, so they'll be a little fresher, but I like the depth the Pistons have and maybe like the creativity of the offense that they'll be able to bring out compared to the other two possibilities.
So I know that I just went on a soapbox and talked about how if I were a Knicks fan, I would just be petrified of the Pistons. Oddly enough, it's true in the inverse as well. I am absolutely afraid of the New York Knicks. On one hand, they're battle tested. Even Carl Anthony Towns has been to the Eastern Conference Finals. That is a team that if the Pistons kind of give them a good right hook, right, win a couple of games in the series, it's not like they're going to crumble. They've been there and done that. They know how to handle the pressure. So I don't think that's necessarily true of the Pacers. I do think that that's true of the Knicks. And then I just have this nightmare of the Knicks doing what the Atlanta Hawks did to the Pistons in the second half of that game where Cade was going off, where the Knicks would just send OG Anunoby and McCall Bridges to trap Cade in the backcourt, get it out of his hands. And unless you're going to start Dennis Schroeder, there is nobody in that starting lineup that I trust to really attack that now like semi-transition 4-on-3 break effectively, 9 times out of 10. And that just, on top of what the Knicks could do offensively, that little idea of sending two really athletic, long-armed 6'8" guys to trap Cade at the opposing free throw line and just saying, let someone else beat us. And I'm not sure anyone else can. And that scares me, scares the daylights out of me. I would much rather have the Pacers or even the Bucks, to be honest with you. That Bucks team, I've said before, I'll say it again, I just don't love how they're built. And I think that any team, not to slight Doc Rivers, but any team coached by Doc Rivers is just a ticking time bomb before a ultimate collapse in the playoffs. So I do think that if the Pistons gave him a good shot, all of a sudden, if you get into a game 7, all bets are off. All bets would be off against the Bucks, even though I think they'd have the best player on the floor just because of that. I would rather have the Pacers. They went on kind of that Cinderella run last year. I don't think that proves anything. You can't say that that's a battle-tested team. They had one really good run. They've struggled a little bit this year, especially at the beginning, started off really slow. The Pistons undoubtedly have the best player in that series, and I bet Asar Thompson can do a number on Tyrese Halliburton's offensive production. So, look, I think this is a different conversation if Jaden Ivey were magically healthy, if we could wave a magic wand, fix his shin, and have it have been no issue at all, because then all that concern I have with the Knicks, it goes away. Great. Take the ball out of Cade's hands, give it to Jaden Ivey. Jaden's going to go get some buckets. I feel pretty good about that. But without him, I'm scared. Give me the Pacers.
Yeah. Hey, I mean, whoever it is, it's gonna be tough. And I know when you're there, like the expectation is to win, but I do think we need to like level set a bit and just let's hope it can at least be a competitive series again, just because like who thought this team would have been in the position that they're in right now, and like yeah, when they make it there, do I want to see them make a crazy run? Yes, but the good thing is like everything is going right to plan, even faster than you expected. So I know a lot of things can change over a year and over an off season, but you're right in position to like go and do the same thing again the next season, where some of these other teams might not be, like stars ask out, contracts run out, things like that. So I just like where the Pistons are set up for the future. Obviously, they have a lot to figure out themselves in the offseason with like Beasley's contract and what their plan is, and you owe Tobias 26 million again next season. So it's obviously a lot to figure out, but I just like where the Pistons stand long term compared to the other teams that we're talking about.
This is where I'm at. YouTube user says we are
Yeah,
getting our first playoff win this season, and that is
have to.
guaranteed. And I agree. I think that that's happening. I maybe I'm projecting a little dream casting there, but I do think that it's happening. We're going to get that win. Let's perhaps close on this. We'll see. We got a little bit of a time limit today, but this is a great question from Team Raf in the DBB comments. I wanted to make sure we hit on it. So you were talking about the team exceeding expectations, right? And getting to this spot where they are right now. You could kind of track this turnaround back to that road trip in December of this past year. So Team Raf says this iteration of the Pistons seems to have really taken shape starting with the December 2024 West Coast road trip. That's the road trip where they went out, had a bunch of tough games, and I believe they won them all. So what do you think drove the growth of the team starting since that run that they have? And remember, you had Jaden Ivey for a portion of the road trip, but not by the end of it, not since, obviously, with that injury. So it's not like this is I don't think this is an easy question, I should say. I think there's probably a lot that goes into it, but what do you think is really the main driver here for the Pistons?
Man, so I just think that really any conversation that you're having with the Pistons like has to start with Cade, just because he makes everything go. He's your franchise player. But what's interesting is like those West Coast games, he had a great stretch at times, but there were also some games where he wasn't very efficient. He honestly wasn't very efficient from the field for most of that road trip. But if you go through those games, like 13 assists, 10 assists, 10 assists, 8 assists. So still finding ways to get the offense in motion. But I think around that time is just when we saw all the so it's the end of December, and like you're starting your season mid October. A lot of this group is the same, but a lot of them are new. They're figuring out how to play off each other. They have a new coach, they have a new front office. So I think that just might have been the perfect time to where everything maybe came together and started to gel. And honestly, shout out to Jaden Ivey, because the Sacramento game of this trip is when he hit that crazy 4-point play buzzer beater, and then Mike Brown got fired the next day. Like shots like that aren't ones that you forget, and I think that it can really just go a long way for what a young team is trying to do. And you start to see wins stack up. You go out west, you beat the Suns, you beat the Lakers, you beat the Kings, and you drop one to Denver, but then you go and rattle off 5 in a row after that. Like I really think just having the confidence to go on this long road trip when you also can probably like spend more time as a team together. It was their longest road trip to date. And just like grow more of those bonds, because obviously they'd already been together for a decent amount of time, not a crazy amount. But I think the start or end of December heading into the new year might have just been the where it all started to click. And unfortunately, right after that, you lose Jaden Ivey for a considerable amount of time, maybe this season. But overall, like I just think winning those tight games again at like crypto.com arena and how they beat the Kings. It just goes a long way and does a lot for the confidence. And they were probably able to have much more fun out west because they were winning games and how they won them in particularly.
Momentum's a real thing in sports. When you start to string some improbable games together and all of a sudden it starts to feel a little bit more like an expectation, the confidence in those clutch moments goes a really long way. I don't think you could really undervalue that as a output generator here for the Pistons. You brought up Cade. I just want to read off the January and February stats for him because it's pretty insane. So in the month of January, 27.6 points, 5.8 rebounds, 8.4 assists. And in the month of February, he slowed down a little bit. 26 points, 5.5 rebounds, and 10.1 assists. So, a little bit of a dip in production there. Cade has been unreal. I think that once Jaden Ivey went down, the success that we have seen since that is absolutely a product of Cade Cunningham taking more of that load and excelling with it. And you combine that with Asar Thompson's ability to be a disruptor out on the perimeter as a defender on the other end, and now he's getting more minutes as well. I think those two things are, for me, the real drivers of this turnaround. You have Cade taking on more of a scoring and playmaking load than he ever had before and just absolutely excelling. He's elevated himself to a new level of star player. I know it's only 3 games, but it's not like this trend is going away. You got 27 points, 5 rebounds, and 9.3 assists in these 3 games so far in March. This is just who he is now, and it's incredible, unbelievable to watch. Easily, I think at this point right now in the league, easily a top 10 player. Or no, probably easily top 15, likely also a top 10 player at this point. He's been that good, and I don't see it going away. And then Asar Thompson kind of riding a little bit of the coattails of that, being just a little pesky disruptor on defense who's an incredible athlete and can do a little bit of secondary creation. You put those two things together, and it makes up for what they lost, right, when Jaden Ivey went down and things were clicking. And so those two guys being able to essentially absorb what you were missing in Jaden Ivey, and of course adding in now Dennis Schroeder as well goes a long way. But those two guys absorbing the hit, taking it on really themselves, right, and excelling in that new adjusted role to help make up for the loss of Jaden Ivey, that to me is what allowed the clicking to continue, right, as you put it, right? Allow that that gelling, the chemistry, the momentum, everything that had been building over that road trip to continue on now through February and into March and hopefully beyond.
Yeah, I mean, hey, we had questions if the Asar and Jalen Duren in the starting lineup would work, especially like
Big questions.
without Malik Beasley. And I mean that can still be a long-term question if it's what you want to do, but they're figuring that out and they're winning games as well. So yeah, like Chuck Brewer mentioned in the chat, pointing out Asar and like the new coaching staff gelled. Like totally agree with that. Asar makes his season debut late November, comes on a little bit slow on a bit of a pitch count, and you just get him more and more comfortable, more and more responsibility, and he's been great. Like he hit a groove as well. Like did it fully start on that road trip? Like it was still probably coming along a little bit there. I think JB just recently said he's off a minutes restriction. So Asar has just been huge for this team as well. Like if you didn't have him ready to head into the starting lineup and fill in that gap like Jaden Ivey, then you don't have a scorer like Malik Beasley coming off the bench and like being a 6th man of the year candidate and everything like that. So he was a true game changer for this season. And obviously you never want your players to be out, but like Asar's time where he was like fully ready to be back coinciding with when Ivy went down, it's been huge for this team.
Since we're talking about Jaden Ivey, let's hit on this and then we'll close out the show. So Derek Brown says that he loves Jaden Ivey, but he doesn't want to give him long-term contract money. Says he's only 6'4", he's not a great defender, and Cade might just be better without him. Where are you at with the Jaden Ivey contract situation this offseason? I know we were talking positively about hopefully being able to get that deal done before the injury, but has the injury and then now subsequently the play of Cade Cunningham after the injury changed your opinion or not?
I really wish that we had the additional like sample of Ivy still playing to like see how things would be working, and obviously we couldn't compare it to the potential success like with or without it, but I really think if I am the Pistons and or Jaden Ivey's agent, like I'm just looking at the contract that Jalen Green got last summer and sort of using that as my starting point, which was 3 years, 106 million, with a player option on the third year. So, and the contract can go up if like Ivy becomes an all-star, if Jalen Green becomes an all-star. Like I feel like you have to look at that contract and say, okay, maybe you don't think Jaden Ivey has like the scoring potential that Jalen Green has. You're not fully sure if it's going to work out next to Cade, but in the I don't have however many games he played this season in front of me, but Jaden Ivey shot like 40% from three this year. It like he showed improvement there. You saw him improve around the rim, and I think he really could be an off speed pitch. Like I think it could work next to Cade. I know we haven't really seen it, but I still believe in that. So I understand not wanting to commit to him long term, but I'm wondering like is 3 years with an option on the third year, like I feel like I'd be comfortable with that. Like it's not a 4 or 5 year extension, and especially like if you could get Ivy a little bit less than what Green signed for in terms of the dollar amount with the cap going up, like I think I would be comfortable without it. I know it's been thrown around as maybe like 50, 55 million for Ivy and Duran combined. Like I think that's pretty accurate, but I think they're also is a decision from both of these players. Like, do we think we could potentially earn more going into restricted free agency or potentially finding another opportunity? I don't know if either of them want to do that. Honestly, I doubt it, but they could.
Yeah, I mean, for me, if it were me, I would still want Jaden Ivey on like 4 or 5 years of a deal if possible, right? How quickly we forget, I guess, is kind of where I'm at with this because look, he averaged just a tick under 18 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists, shot 41% from three on about 5 attempts. Okay, the couple of games right near the end. I mean, he had been declining a little bit in his production before excuse me, before he got hurt, but look, you were seeing a guy surging there over that West Coast trip, right by the end of it. And coincidentally at a time where sure, Cade wasn't scoring nearly 28 points a night, but he was at 25, 6 rebounds and 11 assists. I don't think that these guys are mutually exclusive. I think that they proved through the first half of this year that they actually play really well together offensively. And Jaden Ivey was showing some flashes as an on-ball defender, kind of as a little pit bull type on-ball defender, even with his off-ball deficiencies. So I think to me, like I would want to lock him up long term. I think he's at least a good fit for the now, be that the next 2-3 seasons before you kind of reassess things and maybe want to make a bigger push for championship level competition if that's where the team is at. But I don't think there's any reason that these guys or that we should believe that these guys can't thrive together offensively. Even with, by the way, even with Asar Thompson, who, yes, has taken a lot more ball handling responsibilities, but it's not like that's natural for him. Where he's natural with the ball and as a playmaker is in transition. The big concern is not in transition. The big concern's in the half court where Cade is dominating the ball. Yes, they'll have Asar bring it up and make a first pass, but when Cade's out there, all of that offense is going through him. It's only a good thing if you have more options. We have seen it in a few games since that injury and since Dennis Schroeder has arrived, where you're thinking, thank goodness this team has another initiator type ball handler. Well, that's Jaden. And Jaden can also give you 20, 25 points on any given night if he wants to as well. Plus, he's a great athlete, and he's a menace in transition and would be so fun to watch next to Asar Thompson on the break. Like, I think it's only a positive with these guys. My only question, my only concern is that Jaden Ivey would want to test free agency. He'd want to have the one more year after he's had the injury and after a full offseason of recovery to do the whole, gamble on yourself sort of deal and push for a max contract afterwards. Because I don't think right now he's earned the max level of contract extension. So that's my concern. My concern's not, I don't know, are the Pistons, right to give him an extension? My worry is that they'll offer him one and he'll say no, and that would really suck. That would suck. So give me Jaden Ivey. I love the fit here.
Yeah, and I will say if you do extend him for like a longer term 4 or 5 year deal, you can't trade him immediately because of the poison pill. But like once the extension kicks in and things aren't working out, you can certainly trade him from that point. I'm sure there are plenty of teams around the league who would love to have Jaden Ivey on their team. So yeah, I'm with you, Wes. I think it is of the Pistons' best interest to try and lock Ivy down. I'm not sure. Like, I think the team would probably want to lock him down for as long as possible. Maybe Ivy wants to shorten that contract and potentially make him some more money, bet on himself a little bit um, towards the end. But there are plenty of options, and it really just stinks that we don't have this like 50 plus games of Jay and Ivy this season. So these decisions could be more clear because, like you mentioned, it is easy to forget about it fairly quickly, especially with how this team is playing. But yeah, the last thing I'll say about Ivy is like all the spacing concerns that we had with this team last year for plenty of years were finally addressed. Like suddenly Jaden Ivey has kind of turned into a floor spacer, shooting attack under 41% on over 5 attempts a game this year. Like not huge sample size, but it's 30 games. So he's improved in that sense and in some of the areas that he's needed to. It's just the injury just throws a monkey wrench into everything.
Last thought just on that 3-point shooting number. Yeah, small sample size, but it's excelling, right? It's above and beyond where he would need to be in order to provide proficient spacing. With a guy taking 5 attempts a game, you're really only hoping he's like just above league average. So 37 would be an awesome number. He's 4 percentage points above that on this 30 game stretch. So yeah, I also buy the shooting. But Blake, I think we could wrap it up on that one. Big thanks to everybody who showed up for the live show, the live recording here. Again, if you're here from the beginning, apologies for the tech issues that we had, but thankfully we were able to get that figured out. And of course, leave the voicemail, call, all that. We love that. Do the like, subscribe, usual stuff. We're trying to be better about calling that out. It does really help us grow. Outside of that, Blake, wrap it up.
Yeah, I also just wanted to give a shout out and thoughts and prayers to Andy Isaac, who it was posted on his Twitter account that he passed away today after a long battle with cancer. So being a Detroit sports show, I know we've all followed him for so long. Some of us know him and have relationships, whether it's online or in person. I never had the opportunity to meet him, but everything I've heard, truly great guy. And I just wanted to bring that up because I'm sure if you are listening to us, whether live or audio, if you've ever listened to us I'm sure you've followed and seen a lot more from Andy Isaac, and huge Pistons guy too, huge Detroit sports guy, Michigan State guy. So just wanted to give him a shout out, and the Pistons are going to be doing the rest of the season for him too. So yeah, I just wanted to call that out, and just say thoughts and prayers to him and his family and everything. But shout out to everyone for joining us and
Really
leaving
quick,
all the questions.
Blake, wanted to just add
Yeah.
in. I'll always, I also never got the chance to meet with him in person, but always loved the food reviews, all the sausage
Oh,
spots.
those are
It
the
was
best.
fantastic. So yeah, big loss for Pistons Twitter. Obviously, thoughts up for his family, and hopefully everything goes as smoothly as it could. And not to just continue adding onto the downer note, but I meant to mention this earlier. Wanted to give an apology to our guy Evan from Ontario. I made the terrible editing mistake of not including the voicemail when we first released the podcast, which really defeats the purpose of, hear your voice on the show. I corrected the error, but I felt really bad. It was a couple days after the actual show release, which I'm sure he listened to right away and thought that we just omitted his question or something. So really feel bad. Apologies for that. It's in there now. Hopefully that won't happen again. But yeah, that's not nearly as big of a downer as obviously the other one. A big loss to Pistons Twitter with Andy Isaac, and again, thoughts and prayers there. But a secondary apology was warranted, and I only remembered here at the end, so just had to throw it in.
I was supposed to remind you about that, so that's my fault too.
Falling on the sword,
yeah,
like a good co-host. I appreciate it.
Evan, we definitely have to help you out with your phone bill now and the international tolls. So yeah, shout out to you. And yeah, with Andy, I love the outrageous snack reviews he did. So this weekend, I'm gonna find the wildest snack junk food I can. Just try it in honor of him. But yeah, again, shout out to everyone for joining, for keeping the chat lively, all the great questions. Yeah, just another reminder to subscribe to the Detroit Bad Boys YouTube channel when you can. Really helps us out. And if you do want to use that voice line to ask a question, hear your voice on the show, the number for that is 313-355-2717. And special thank you to Sean Corp, the managing editor of Detroit Bad Boys, for supporting the show. Shout out to you guys again for all the great questions and talking points. We'll catch you next week, whether on your commute or live with us on YouTube. We can't wait to talk more Detroit basketball with you.